What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA. All right, check this out. So I thought this was a really interesting conversation to have because Madam Web is out. Madam Web is getting dog walked up and down the internet, all over X. Everybody is absolutely destroying this thing. It still is sitting on, I think, 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's probably just going to keep falling the more people watch this movie, is because it's just that bad, you know. But one of the conversations that's kind of coming out of this thing right now is when it comes to these big time studio movies and who's to blame when things don't work out. Who's to blame when a movie goes south and it's coming from one of these gigantic studios like Sony or like Disney or Paramount, Warner Brothers, etc. You know, who's to blame for that? And then kind of a spin-off conversation from that. Who's allowed to criticize said films? You know, do you have to have some sort of filmmaker background to be able to come out and criticize the movie? You know, and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought this was an interesting conversation. It stems off of Chris Stuckmann, who you guys know, or maybe you don't. Chris Stuckmann is a big time film reviewer on YouTube. He's been in the game for years and years and years. And when, you know, a big movie comes out, a lot of people are going to his channel to check out the review to see what he has to say about it. For a while now, Chris Stuckmann is basically saying, yo, I'm not going to, trash movies that I think are bad. You know, he wants to stick to more of a positive slant. That's totally his prerogative. He can do whatever he wants to do on his channel. I don't necessarily fault him for that. But now that's starting to spark another conversation. So this is the conversation that's happening right now. And this has been circling today. Mostly, I've started to see it today, even though it was posted yesterday. This guy, Joe Russo of Joe Russo Tweets. And before you ask, this is not the Anthony and Joe Russo of the Russo brothers that are Marvel fame. His thing, even here, this is him right here. Joe Russo, writer, director, producer. So he is in the film game. All right. He does produce film. He says the horror guy, not the Captain America guy. All right. So that's who this dude is. So he is a guy that tweets a lot about film and filmmaking. And here's what he had to say in regards to Chris, because people were posting this little tweet. He is so annoying. Oh my God. Because essentially in this, he's saying, hey, I'm not going to, I'm not going to review Madam Web in a negative way. Even though I watched it, I'm not going to talk about it in a negative way. We're going to talk about other things. We're going to talk about how Sony handles filmmaking, how Sony treats its filmmakers. That's basically what Chris Stuckmann was discussing. This guy says, if you Twitter trolls were like Chris and actually learned how hard it is to make a movie instead of just crying about them from your mom's basement, you too would make videos like this one. All right, so let's talk about this. First of all, the idea that you actually have to learn how hard it is to make a movie to be able to offer your criticism of the movie is just absolute bullshit, because look, I don't know how hard it is to do a lot of things in life, but I can criticize the results. I don't know how hard it is to build a house, because I've never had to build a house. But if the house is shitty and falling apart, it's like, yo, that's a shitty looking house right there. I don't need to know how hard it is to make a movie to be able to offer my criticism of the results. And the results of Madam Web is that it is trash. It is an absolute dumpster fire. So I don't know what this guy is talking about. Chris is allowed to not criticize the film, but for this guy to say, well, if you knew how hard it was, maybe you would be making videos. No. That's not the way this works. The fact of the matter is, Madam Web is just like a fast food movie, empty calories, designed to just fill up the pockets of Sony. That's it. They made this movie to cash in on a strong IP, and that's it. It didn't come from a place of love. Oh my God, I love Madam Web. I love this franchise. I can't wait to make this movie. It's been burning in my heart for 30 years. Nobody is saying that about this. The filmmakers, Sony, nobody had that in mind. They got an IP that they can cash in on, make some quick, easy money. It's just fast food. That's it. They didn't make this movie with some sort of avant-garde love for the genre. Like Chris Stuckmann, for instance. Chris Stuckmann is making horror movies because he loves horror movies. All right. So he goes out and he makes an independent horror film because that's what he loves. Okay. Like the types of films, Madam Web, those deserve the criticism the most, because they are simply existing to cash in on a giant IP. It's not made from love. It's not made with the fans in mind. It's not made with the character in mind. They just play fast and loose with this IP, and they hope that by slapping Madam Web, oh, it's in the Sony Spider-Man universe, you will come running to the theaters to check it out. That's what the hope is. It's not made with any real honest, look at the franchise or the genre or the character or anything. So yeah, these films absolutely deserve, all the criticism that they can get. So yeah, I was kind of disappointed that Chris, kind of strayed away from that. Although I don't have a problem with him doing that. That's fine, because he does open up that other conversation, which I wanted to discuss, of who's to blame when a bad movie like Madam Web comes out from a giant studio like Sony. Who's to blame for that? He makes mention of like Blumhouse, for instance, in this video, and I'll link the video down below so you can watch it, because I don't want to give you the whole thing. But he did bring up this point, like how Blumhouse, how they have like some good ones, like, The Invisible Man he brought up. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a great movie. So then how can this same, company then turn around and make some crap like Truth or Dare? I think they made Truth or Dare. Like, how did that happen? Now, is it because perhaps Blumhouse is struggling to match up the right project with the right creative team, with the right director? It's like this is a mismatch, this project and this, director, they don't quite mesh well. Maybe they're bad at hiring the creators. We see that from Kathleen Kennedy all the time. She can't pick a director to save her life, so maybe that's what it is. And then as the project gets rolling, they start to see some issues, but they don't want to pull the plug because it's probably a diversity hire, the whole time. It kind of reminds you of that quote from Bob Iger. Oh man, we needed the executives on set. We needed the executives to kind of tell Nia DaCosta what to do. She was screwing this whole thing up. So there's probably a lot of studio interference going on in Hollywood around this stuff. And then when everything don't work out as planned, what do? They throw that creative right up under the bus. It's the director's fault. It's the writer's fault. We got to do a better job. Kevin Feige's been blaming people. Kathleen Kennedy blamed people. Bob Iger blames people. And it really isn't them. It's the fact that you're lousy at your job. You're lousy at picking a proper director or writer for this project, And so that's kind of what Chris Stuckmann says. I don't want to do that. Let's start looking at the studios. But at the same time, look, in my opinion, it goes to the studios, but it also goes to the filmmaker. What Chris is kind of pulling out of the picture is that these filmmakers are still human beings with agency, with their own agency. And they're not being held at gunpoint to make this movie. So if there's a situation where they're not allowed to flex their creativity, say, yo, I made this kind of a movie, but these executives keep breathing down my neck telling me to change this, change that, change. Hey, man, deuces, all right? Book it. Chunk up the deuces, hit the road. You don't have to stick around for that. And that's how I look at it. We just saw the Avatar, The Last Airbender creators. They man, we out of here, man. Creative differences. And that's their own project that they created, And they said, I'm walking away from this. They don't want their names attached to that dumpster fire. So the reality is, if you're not willing to walk away from a project, then you should be willing to accept all the slings and arrows, all right, of that outrageous fortune that you're making off of this movie, all right? Because just like in the words of Super Chicken,
you knew the job was dangerous when you took it, Fred. Come on.
You should absolutely know, as a filmmaker that's been in the game for years, apparently this director from Madam Web, she's been in the game for years. She's not new to this. She knows what the studios are all about. She knows what studio interference is. She wanted a big time gig. She wanted to direct this movie. Nobody held her up and said, you're going to direct this movie or else. No, she was allowed to do that. So in my opinion, everybody deserves the blame. And you know me. The first people I throw up under the bus, who? Kathleen Kennedy. I start with the executives before I even work my way down to all of these other clowns that they hire to make them whatever it is that they're making. I start with the executives. I start with Kathleen Kennedy, Kevin Feige. When James Gunn shit come out, I'm going to be, James Gunn, that's you, bro. If anything in the DC universe comes back bad, that's you. All right? Yeah, I'm going to be looking at them creatives too, because like I said, if you're a creative, you need to stand behind your work, and like I said, when it comes to Stuckmann, he can do whatever he want to do. But to me, it's like a movie like Madam Web, big studio movie that's simply made not for some artistic vision. Oh, I had this artistic vision of, this glorious Madam Web. Nah. Everybody got a share in the blame of that crap. If it's a crappy movie, you can start with the executives and say, yo, it looks like it's a whole lot of, studio interference going on, but it just works its way down the ladder. The only people I say probably is least to blame is like the crew, like your cameraman, the guy getting catering every day or whatever. Like those people that were a part of the crew. Like, yeah, okay, those guys didn't do it. But even the actors and actresses, man, this was a shitty script. Hey, man, you took the role. You took the role for the money. You getting paid big bucks for this. You getting to stand out there on the red carpet, So you eat that. Eat that. Hold that L. Quit trying to hand that L off to somebody else. Well, not me. Dakota Johnson going around on her press tour, just basically talking shit about Madam Web this entire time. Just kind of, just little sly wink saying, yeah, this movie ain't that hot. Okay. All right. Well, Dakota, you put your name on it. You got paid for it. So you own some of that. Do a better job acting. You got to get an acting performance of your life now, because you attach your name to this trash. So yeah, I get where Stuckmann is coming from, and even this guy, Joe Russo, he's not making sense to me at all because, like I said, I don't care how hard it is to make a movie. It's hard to write a novel. It's very hard to write a novel. I just got through, doing some work on mine last night. It's hard to write a book. But guess what? I got to accept the role of how hard it is. And people can criticize my work. In fact, I want them to. You want criticisms of your work. You want people to tell you, this is good, this is bad, this needed a little work. I like this, but I didn't like that. You need that. As a creative, you want that. You want people to criticize you. You want people to come out against your work because that's how you get better. Yeah, it hurts. Sure, it hurts. Like, man, damn, man, that sucks. They didn't like it. Shit, I got to do better. That's how all of these creators look at this situation. And I always thought it was interesting. Chris Gore, he came in here and said, hey, Joe, I hear what you're saying. I made films and produced television myself. Also comment on films, and he invited them on the Film Threat to discuss it. That'd be an interesting conversation. And Nerdrotic was like, I'll say a prayer for all the lost souls who descend into the make-believe minds to make pretend. I mean, here's the thing, man. When you're talking about film criticism, when you're talking about making movies, you're talking about probably one of the top type jobs that you can have in this planet. You get to make a movie. I mean, you get to play pretend, like he says, you get to make pretend in the make believe minds. There's people out there doing hard labor. And yeah, maybe it is, like he says, it's very hard to make a movie. And maybe it is. But I mean, that's one of the most privileged jobs in the world. If you get to do this for a living and make your money off of this, man, you should be happy that anybody is even willing to talk about your movie. Anybody's willing to criticize your movie. People just didn't leave it in the dust and forget about it. You should be happy for that. And you should be looking at that criticism as an opportunity to get better. You should be looking at the criticism saying, yo, I didn't do a good job with this. People are ripping me up from pillar to post. Where is this at right now? Yeah, still sitting at a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, 55% audience score. The audience score keeps dropping. Yeah, you should be looking at this absolutely as an opportunity to learn from all of this. If you're S.J. Clarkson, the chick that directed this, she should take all of that criticism. She should read every review. And yeah, it's not easy. I've had bad reviews of my stuff. It's not easy. Some of you on your job, you've gotten bad reviews from your boss. Or from people that, maybe you deal with the face-to-face client and somebody said, yo, I didn't like this guy in the way he handled my account today. I don't like this guy in the way he handled business today. He needs to be reprimanded or whatever. Maybe you had to listen to that. Hey, it's part of the world, man. It's part of the game. So I feel like the critics, especially guys like Stuckmann, okay? Guys like Stuckmann, they made a living and they made their reputation by being honest critics. I liked his early reviews, because he's a guy that's straightforward. He gives it to you plain English, doesn't try to, make it bigger than what it is. Like, yo, this is what I thought of the movie. He's a film fan like the rest of us. That's how he started his channel. And so I feel like, yo, we need that voice. That's how he made his channel into what it is. And yeah, now that he's a filmmaker, he don't want to throw filmmakers under the bus. I completely understand that. But at the same time, yo, it's like, this is Madam Web, man. Throw it under the bus. Again, Sony and all of these filmmakers, they didn't get into this, like I said, with some sort of a noble mission in mind, and it just went left. These guys are here to make bread. That's it. That's what they got this for. They got into this to make bread. Maybe somebody somewhere in this thing believed in the project itself, but I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. Madam Web, who was looking at this character? This is just simple Sony trying to cash in on the Spider-Man IP. That's it. So if you're going to try to cash in on the IP and take a big popular comic book characters, not necessarily Madam Web, but Spider-Man, the entire Spider-Man universe, you're trying to take this giant franchise and cash in on it, you got to do it right. Or you got to deal with the consequences of not doing it right. And I don't want to hear, oh man, these guys don't really understand how hard it is. I don't want to hear all of that. All right. Once again, Super Chicken.
You knew the job was dangerous when you took it, Fred.
You knew the job was dangerous when you took it. You jumped into the arena of the giant franchise, the big IP with fans the worldwide. You jumped into that. Do it right. Or get clowned and get stomped on into oblivion. Either way, I don't care. I'm having a good time. You guys let me know what you think. Jump down in the comments. Give me your thoughts and opinions on that. And thanks for watching. See you next time.